Things start out fairly normal, then suddenly there is a shift and you see that things are indeed far from normal in all of these coming clips. Enjoy if you have the heart for it. In this world, there are a lot of things you do not do on the dark web. In this clip, we see that buying a dog from the dark web is a top list of things you should never do. Why? Find out here.
This thing is so weird. Can you understand me?
The Colt family. This is the story of the most inbred family in Australia. Yes, it is all you must have heard about inbred family and more. Check out more information in this clip.
The most inbred family in Australia, the Colt family. The Colts were an Australian family discovered in 2012 that is believed to have engaged in for generations of incest, beginning with a couple known as Tim and June Colt, who were brother and sister that immigrated from New Zealand to Australia in the 1970s. The family moved throughout Australia to avoid detection, only being discovered when someone was curious about why one of the children weren't enrolled in school. Children slept in tents and their living conditions were so horrific. They were unfamiliar with toilets and showers, and they had never been enrolled in school. They were malnourished and dirty. It was apparently normal for grandparents to have relations with their grandchildren. Uncles had children with nieces. Brothers and sisters had children, etc. I have tried to wrap my head around this case and their family tree, but it is difficult to understand, as you can see.
Now, on today's episode of Pictures Taken Before Disasters, we have this strangely horrifying picture of the tribe man. But is he a tribe man? Find out. What the heck is going on in this video? Why was this grandma so ecstatic when they confirmed to her that her son-in-law was dead? What's the catch?
Alright, it's time to explain this video.
Dead? He's dead, man. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh boy, oh boy. You don't feel bad about it? No. Would you do it again? Yes.
So her name is Cynthia Sidibaka. On February 11th of 2014, she shot and killed her son-in-law. Prior to her crime, Cynthia suffered a very bad stroke. Because of this, she moved in with her daughter and her son-in-law, and they did not get along. They were always on each other's nerves. Apparently, on the day of the crime, Cynthia and her son-in-law got in a big fight. It was actually on Cynthia's birthday. Cynthia also said that since living with her son-in-law, she noticed that he would physically and emotionally abuse her daughter and the two children. So to her, she thought she was saving the daughter and children. I'm not justifying her actions at all, but this is why she was so happy. She thought she saved her family.
So what are you going to do? Answer the question only after the clip has ended.
If you see another person that looks identical to you, run away and hide.
It is one thing to be a cold-hearted thief, but to be a killer too? Not just to kill, but also bring a child into the mix. Now that is pure crazy.
This is one of the most disgusting and evil cases I've heard of recently. On the 7th of December 2017, teacher Thelma Boinville was desperately trying to make some extra money. She was doing a cleaning job to earn extra money for her family, and the job suited her as her 8-year-old could come along and play while she worked. This was really handy as it meant she didn't have to fork out for childcare. She set out cleaning some holiday homes on the day in question, and her daughter waited in the car. The spot was a lovely scenic place called Kelkie Beach. However, instead of walking in on a normal holiday rental to clean, she walked into a nightmare. Stephen Brown and his girlfriend Hayley Dangerand were in the middle of robbing the place. They were scouring through drawers and wardrobes, hunting for valuables to steal. With Thelma walking in, their plan had been foiled. They decided they needed to dispose of their only witness. The evil pair tied up the mother, whose daughter waited unsuspectingly in the car outside. They used a machete, a knife, and a hammer to murder the innocent woman. But the horror was far from over. They exited the holiday home and came across Thelma's young daughter waiting in the car. They callously told the young girl, "We killed your mum," and then bound her up and gagged her. Sickeningly, they then took the 8-year-old into the home where they'd killed her mum and left her there tied up. The 2 Australian tourists who were renting the holiday home then came back and found the crime scene. The 2 killers were tracked down hours later in Thelma's car, which they'd stolen and driven off in. Hayley was actually wearing her victim's earrings at the time. They actually begged for the officers to just shoot them and end their lives, but they wouldn't get away that easily. Thelma's husband, Kevin, wasn't actually allowed to see his wife's body due to the extent of her injuries. The autopsy revealed that she'd fought for her life, with many defensive wounds indicating a struggle. Since the murder, Stephen and Hayley have both tried to blame each other. Stephen was found guilty of second-degree murder and apparently showed no emotion as the verdict was read out. Hayley is currently awaiting trial.
Do you think you would be able to tell a place with a dark story without being told the dark story beforehand? Check out the pictures in this next clip.
Can you tell a place has a dark history just from looking at it? In this series, I'm showing you some photos so you can see. And I cover all sorts of spooky and true crime stuff on this page, so follow along. This is the Wisconsin home of Ed Gein, also known as the Butcher of Plainfield. There's actually very few photos of this house that are in any way appropriate to share because of the nature of his crimes. It was in this house that Ed taught himself taxidermy after his mother passed away, and it was the local cemetery where he would go to rob graves and practice what he had learned. This is the room that Ed's mother lived in, and after she passed away, he had it completely sealed off and never touched it. This is in part why the movie Psycho was based on Ed Gein. Ed's mother would tell him all these crazy things, like that women were all guilty of lust and they were just sent to tempt men, which is why many people think that he specifically hated women. And you might be thinking that these photos were taken years after he was out of the house, maybe it had been abandoned for a while, but no, these are the conditions that Ed would live in. When robbing graves wasn't enough for Ed, he moved on to taking people's lives. And to this day, no one's definitively sure how many lives he took. But there's a real darkness to these photos, and if you're brave enough to look up the other ones online, you can see how disturbed the person living there actually was.
Let's talk about unforgivable sins. What sin do you think should be unforgivable? What do you know about the youngest woman ever to be put on death row? I mean, how terrible were her actions, right? Let's find out here.
So let's talk about what this monster did to become the youngest woman ever put on death row. So on the morning of January 13th, 1995, 19-year-old Colleen Schlemmer was found brutally murdered in Knoxville, Tennessee. Colleen had been brutally murdered by having her head smashed in with a concrete block after suffering almost an hour of torture, which included having a pentagram carved into her chest while she was still alive. Now, Krista was quickly caught a few days later because she actually took a piece of Colleen's skull and kept it as a souvenir and was going around showing all of her friends and bragging about the murder. Now, it was soon discovered that Krista had actually murdered Colleen along with her boyfriend because Krista was jealous and thought that Colleen was trying to steal her boyfriend away from her, even though that was not true in the slightest. Krista was just 19 years old when she was found guilty and sentenced to death, and she is currently still sitting on death row awaiting her execution.
This is a very disturbing story of the intake of radioactive water for so long that the human body begins to disintegrate. Question is, why radioactive water? Let's find out here.
Viewer discretion is highly advised. In 1927, a wealthy man named Eben Byers fell out of his bed, badly injuring his arm. To help ease the pain, Eben went to his doctor, and the doctor prescribed him a new health tonic that just got on the market called Radithor. He took the prescribed amount and instantly felt a surge of energy and the pain in his arm went away. Eben liked Radithor so much that he would consume it every day for the next few years. It even got to the point where he was consuming 3 bottles of Radithor each day. Everything was going well for him, but that was until his jaw literally fell off. It turned out Radithor was literally just radioactive water. For the next few years of his life, Eben's body would slowly disintegrate, all leading to his death in 1932. Eben was buried in a lead coffin that was designed to absorb the radiation emitting from his body. To this very day, Eben's body is still radioactive.
This clip was taken by a man just walking in the Paris catacombs, but obviously, something is not right in this place.
It's a point of view shot. The point of view shot is somebody just walking forwards with the camera. So basically he's filming what he's seeing very deep inside the catacombs. Other than the point of view shots are pictures of bones. Human bones. Occasionally stops and he photographs bones, often in the shape of an arrow. These arrows point in a direction. Occasionally also he stops to photograph roomfuls of bones, which means that he's very, very deep inside the catacombs. What happened to him? Nobody knows. There are ways to match things up, to try to identify where this person was in the catacombs. At times you'll see there's signs, painted signs on the wall, which is not uncommon. People have been painting in the catacombs for centuries. So it is possible with these paintings that we may be able to retrace an itinerary to some extent. After about 40 minutes of these point of view shots and these pictures of bones, the person begins to walk faster and faster. Then he begins to run. We hear his breathing get louder and louder, as though something was scaring him. He's frightened, he's frightened. Occasionally he stops, perhaps to try to decide which way to run among all the many different corridors. He's running faster and faster and faster, deeper and deeper into the catacombs. And all of a sudden, he drops the camera. The camera just drops on the ground and keeps rolling. And you see his feet just run away. And it keeps rolling until it runs out of tape.
Do you think angels look like the fairy gods with complimentary wings to go? Well, this video would change your mind.
This is how angels really look like. This is how demons look like. This is how biblically correct angels look like. They look like this to scare off demons.
From mocking God to having a series of disasters, could there be a connection?
What is happening in Brazil? They mocked God in the Carnival of Rio de Janeiro 2023, and God unleashed his wrath on them. Lightning strikes the gigantic statue of Christ the Redeemer in Brazil. A carnival unfolded in Brazil exalting Satan and mocking Jesus. As lightning strikes in the middle of the carnival, leaving dozens dead, the man who disguised himself as Satan dies burned. A deluge breaks out about the country, tearing down houses, dragging cars, and landslides. God cannot be mocked. Everything man does will have consequences. Love to God, amen.
Till the next scary time, friend.